7. Down in the valley, the Tat were scavenging along the floodplain, their thoraxes glowing green in Julio's hazy light, with the rest of their foraging territory brown and withering from a chis defoliant. The workers were stripping the ground bare, leaving nothing in their wake but rouged stubble and mud. It was a desperate act that would only deepen their famine in the future, but the insects had no choice. Their larvae were starving now. In the midst of such poverty and hardship, Jaina Solo felt more than a little guilty eating green thacatillo, but it was the only thing on the menu tonight. Tomorrow it would be brought rib and crate eggs or some other rarity more suitable to the state dinner than a field post. And she would eat that too. The Tat would be insulted if she did not. Jaina spooned a curd into her mouth, then glanced around the veranda at her companions. They were all seated on primitive spitcrete benches, holding their bowls in their laps and using small force bubbles to keep the dust at bay. Despite the gritty winds raised by the tidal pull of Corribu, Julio's ringed gas giant primary, the group usually took their meals outdoors. No one wanted to spend more time than necessary in the muggy confines of the nest caves. After the curd had dissolved, Jaina tapped her spoon against the bowl. "Okay," she asked. "Who's responsible for this?" One by one, the others raised their gazes, their faces betraying various degrees of culpability as they examined their thoughts over the last week or so. Shortly after arriving, the team had discovered that whenever they talked about a particular food, the Tat would have a supply delivered within a few days. Concerned about squandering their host's limited resources, Jaina had ordered the group to avoid talking about food in front of the Tat, then to avoid mentioning it at all. Finally, Tsar Sabatine flicked up a talon. "It may have been this one." "May have been?" "Either you said something or you didn't." Tsar's dorsal scales rose in the Barabel equivalent of a blush. "This one said nothing. He thought it." "They can't eavesdrop on thoughts. Someone else must have slipped." She glanced around the group, waiting. The others continued to search their memories, but no one recalled talking about food. Finally, Zek said, "I'm just happy it's Thacatillo instead of some Scowrat or something." Seated on the bench next to Jaina, he wore his black hair as long and ragged as he had in his youth, but that was all that remained the same. A late growth spurt had turned him into something of a human giant, standing 2 meters tall, with shoulders as broad as Lobaka's. "I thought Barabels liked to catch their own food." "When we can. But this one was thinking of our last meal aboard Lady Luck, and he always tastes Thacatillo when he remembers Bella and Krasov and—" Tsar trailed and glanced briefly in Jaina's direction, quietly acknowledging the bond of grief they had come to share through the Mirkur mission. "The others." Even that gentle reminder of her brother's death, even 7 years later, brought a pained hollow to Jaina's chest. Usually her duties as a Jedi Knight kept her too busy to dwell on such things, but there were still moments like these, when the terrible memory came crashing down on her like a Neclonian firestorm. "So maybe the Tat are eavesdropping on our thoughts," Tahiri said, bringing Jaina's attention back to the present. "If we're sure no one said anything, that has to be it." Lobaka let out a long Wookiee moan. "I suppose we will have to avoid thinking about food," Jaina agreed. "We're Jedi. We can't keep eating like Hutts while the Tat larvae starve." "It certainly takes the fun out of it," Alima Rar agreed. The Twi'lek slipped a spoonful of Thacatillo into her mouth, then bit into a curd and curled the tips of a long leku hanging down her back. "Well, most of the fun." Zek ate a spoonful, then asked, "Does it bother anyone that they're listening to our thoughts?" "It should," Jaina replied. "We should feel a little uneasy and violated, shouldn't we?" Alima shrugged. Should is for narrow minds. It makes me feel welcome. Jaina considered this for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Same here. And valued. Zek, you brought it up. Just asking, he said. Doesn't bother me either. I feel the same, Tekli agreed. The furry little Chadrafan twitched her thick-ended snout. Yet we avoid the battle meld now because we dislike sharing feelings among ourselves. That's different, Tahiri said. We get on each other's nerves. To put it mildly, Jaina said. I'll never forget how that blood hunger came over me the first time Tizar saw a Rallop, or how twisted inside this one felt when Alima wanted to nest with that Rhodian rope wrestler. Tizar fluttered his scales, then added, It was a week before he could hunt again. Alima smiled at the memory, then said, Nesting wasn't what I had in mind. Lobaka banged his bowl down on the bench next to him, groaning in distaste and weary resignation. After the war, Jaina and the other strike team members had begun to notice unexplained mood swings whenever they were together. It had taken Silgal only a few days to diagnose the problem as a delayed reaction to the Jedi battle meld. Their prolonged use of it on the Mercure mission had weakened the boundaries among their minds, with the result that now their emotions tended to fill the Force and blur together whenever they were close to each other. Sometimes Jaina believed the side effect was also the reason so many strike team members found it difficult to move on with their lives. Tenel Ka was doing well as the Hapen Queen, and Tekli and Tahiri seemed to regard Zonama Seacoat as both a friend and a home. But the rest of them, Jaina, Alima, Zek, Tizar, Lobaka, even Jason, still seemed lost, unable to maintain a connection with anyone who had not been there. Jaina knew that was why she failed to reconnect with Jagged Fell during their desperate rendezvous, when he had still been serving as Chiss liaison to the Galactic Alliance. She loved him, but she'd just grown increasingly distant from him, from everyone really. Sensing that she had let her dour mood affect the others, Jaina forced a smile. I do have some good news. Jason is coming. As she had hoped, this lifted spirits instantly, especially those of Tahiri, who shared a special kinship with Jason by virtue of the time they had spent in Yuuzhanvong torture dens. But it was Alima, always quick to an interest in males, who asked, Can you tell how soon? It's hard to say, Jaina answered. No one bothered to ask if she had actually spoken to her twin brother. There was no holonet in the unknown regions, and even if there had been, they were too close to the Chiss frontier to risk being overheard by a listening post. But it feels like he's made it past whatever was delaying him. How will he find the colony? Tahiri asked. Though she could certainly sense Alima's interest in Jason as clearly as Jaina did, she seemed more amused by it than irritated. Tekli and I would have been lost without Zonama Seacoat's help. I left a message for him with the coordinates of the Lizzle nest, Jaina said. So, assuming he tries to come, she let the sentence trail off when she felt a sudden alarm. The sense did not ripple or grow or rise. It simply appeared inside Jaina, instantly full-blown and strong. And at first, she thought she was feeling something inside her brother. Then, bowls of Thakatillo began to clack down on the Spitcrete benches, and her companions started to rise and reach for their lightsabers. You feel it too? She asked no one in particular. Fear, Zek confirmed. Surprise. Lobaka rowled in addition. Resolve too, Jaina agreed. What the blazes? Tahiri asked. It's like the Tap were a part of the meld too. Maybe they're more force-sensitive than we thought, Alima suggested. Jaina gazed around, searching the faces of her companions for any indication that the sensation had felt even remotely like a normal force perception to someone else. She found only looks of confusion and doubt. A familiar rumble rose deep inside the nest. Long plumes of black smoke began to shoot from the exhaust vents above the hangar cave. Then a cloud of dart ships poured into the air above the valley and began to climb toward Caribou's ringed disk. Looks like another defoliator squad coming in. Jaina was almost relieved as she started toward their own hangar. After the unexpected feeling of alarm, she had feared something worse. Let's turn 'em back,